Hey, thank you for joining us for another week of Wednesday Hangs Online. I've got Shane here with me, and we're going to be diving into Hosea. It's going to be a fun time. But if this is your first time joining us, we'd love to connect with you. If you want to text NEW to the number that's on the screen now, we'd love to connect with you and just get to know you, help you out in whatever way we can to help you feel more comfortable here with us at LH Students. So Shane, it is mid-November. Thanksgiving is not too far away. We had a very interesting conversation, and I want this to be recorded for everyone to hear.
So nothing about coffee?
Nothing about coffee. I was going to ask you about coffee because it's fun to see you get all riled up about coffee.
Okay.
But I actually feel like I can argue this point. So you gave us a very hot take, and so I would love for you to share your Thanksgiving versus Christmas, because you're very much pitting the two against each other. Your take on that.
I don't feel like I'm pitting the two against each other. I feel like people who jump to Christmas before Thanksgiving have already done that. They've already said, we don't care about giving thanks to the Lord. We just want our presents. And so I kind of feel like we've skipped that, which has brought this controversy to a head.
But don't you think that the joy, like the reason I love Christmas is the anticipation of Christmas itself. It's the atmosphere in the air. Like all the cities will, I know at least all the cities I've lived in, they put up all their Christmas decoration, there are Christmas trees everywhere. There's just people are happy. They're going to tree farms, getting the trees, whatever it may be. Christmas music, peppermint mochas, the only good thing that Starbucks does, there's your coffee thing. But it's just like there's all these great things about Christmas. Now, do I think October is excessive? Absolutely. But for my people that, I see this calendar that's like, it's basically all of November blocked off, and then the day before and after, and then Thanksgiving itself is blocked off, and then all of December is blocked off. And it says Christmas is everything around Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving gets those 3 days. I think that's an appropriate calendar.
And which is what I said earlier, that's the problem I have. We just want to be thankful for one day. If we just put everything the Lord has given us and are thankful for one day, then we've missed it. I think we have to be thankful for more than that. I have no problem with Christmas. I enjoy Christmas in the context of the month of December. I'm okay with Christmas music.
Wait, so it's not even like Black Friday? Like Black Friday, we can't listen to Christmas music? We got to wait till December 1st?
No, I feel like we've jumped the gun. Why not let Thanksgiving play out, enjoy the time with family, the meal, enjoy being thankful for all that the Lord has given to us, and then we move on.
That is a very hot take. I'm gonna chalk that up to your age. That's what I'm going with.
Now, that's offensive because I know a lot of young people who hate the fact that there's Christmas music being played right now.
You know what? That's fair. They do, and it's okay. Their opinion is wrong, and it's okay.
Well, I'm glad we're letting the retail stores dictate our love for Christmas.
Well, it's more like I can't wait to watch Elf. That's just like, if I'm honest, that's a great movie, and it's so much better when it's cold outside. That's really what it is. It's when it gets cold. But anyways, you guys leave us some comments. Tell us what you think. Help me prove Shane wrong, and that, that Christmas is just better in excess. And so anyways, we're going to move on. So Shane, we're wrapping up this kind of section of cover to cover with our last story before we get into the Christmas story with Hosea. And Hosea is one of the minor prophets. And so it's been really cool to spend almost an entire semester going through this one big theme of, cover to cover, and specifically talking about who's the hero and where we fall in these Old Testament stories that we may not feel like really apply to us, and where Jesus, the picture of Jesus is in these. And Hosea is such a clear picture of the gospel.
Yeah.
And so we're going to dive into that. And so what we'll see tonight is that our big idea is that this is the greatest love story ever. And that is because of the picture it is of the gospel. And so, Shane, I would love if you could just to give some brief context of like where Hosea is, who Gomer is, all these different things, and the characters that we're about to be introduced to.
Great. I love this story. This is one of those stories that, like you just said, it's so crystal clear of who represents who in this story. And then just talking about minor prophets, Minor does not mean less.
Right.
Minor means they just wrote less than some of the major prophets. But the themes and the stories are consistent and show Christ and point to Christ. So Hosea is a prophet, and prophets, it's kind of interesting. Their job was basically to come and tell people, hey, here's what God wants you to know. And a lot of times the message was not good. It was, you're living unfaithfully. You're doing this. Turn, repent, and come to the Lord. And so Hosea, our God comes to Hosea and basically says, I don't want you to just tell them. I want you to show them. And so he says, I want you to go find yourself an unfaithful wife. And so can you imagine just, so many people have this picture of their wedding day, and it's beautiful and it's all this stuff. Well, Hosea had to go find a woman who he knew was not going to be faithful to him.
Right.
And then they get married. They have 3 kids. And it's interesting, the names of their kids was also a picture and a story to people. One was named Unfaithfulness. One was named You're Not My People. And so it's very interesting that this whole story. Well, then, just like it was predicted, Gomer, the wife, was unfaithful.
Right.
She starts to follow after and live with other men. And Hosea then is called to go back and buy her back. And that is just an amazing picture of God's love for us.
Yeah, and so that's where we'll see our first point, which is the conflict in this story. And that's that Hosea knew his wife was going to cheat on him. He didn't know when. It wasn't like a, if this happens, it's a when it happens.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Shane, but I personally could not imagine living in that uncertainty. Or I guess the certainty of the uncertainty of a person I'm married to. I couldn't imagine, having to sit there and go, all right, is today the day that she doesn't come home because she's, gone to be with some other guy.
Yeah.
Even after 3 kids, it would just be I would not enjoy that security. And so it's wild because that kind of feeling, how I feel just thinking about it, I mean, that's pretty much how God is with us, right?
And it's here's what's crazy. And I didn't realize this until I had studied some more of the story. So she would go out and be unfaithful. And then she would come back home, and Hosea would put a gift at her door or at next to her bed. And she would wake up and she would see the gift, and she would go out and she would do it again, and she would go out and do it again. And she would take these gifts that Hosea got her and then go worship Baal with them. So not only is she being unfaithful, but then he's trying to love her and kind of draw her back, and she is taking those gifts and worshiping a false god with them. And that's a picture of us.
Yeah.
That's a picture of us. God blesses us and he chases after us, and there's this conflict with us, and he comes after us, and then we keep taking the things he gives us and we use it for something else.
And that's where we see our second point, which is the chase of, Hosea doesn't stop pursuing Gomer. He doesn't stop going, I love you. I'm not going anywhere. You can keep trying this. And the crazy thing is we see in Hosea 3, verses 1 and 2, then the Lord said to me being Hosea, go again, show the love to a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, just as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love raisin cakes. Raisin cakes?
That's a whole different message.
Okay, cool. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and 5 bushels of barley. So not only is Hosea having to give up currency, actual money, he's having to give up food that is going to sustain him and help him function as a human. All this just to get her back. Yeah. Which is what we see, Jesus ultimately comes down and lives this life, this perfect life, to where he doesn't deserve to have to pay the price that he does, which is ultimately death on the cross. But he does it because he loves us. He literally gives up his ability to function as a human. And so, I can't imagine how humiliating that must have been for Hosea to walk up and say, here is the shekels, here is the barley, I will take my wife back.
I think the word you just used, humiliating,
Yeah.
is a great word. Can you just for a moment imagine walking up to a door of another man and saying, "Hey, I've come to buy back my wife.
Yeah.
I've come to buy back my wife." And we look at that, and that's offensive, and it's sad, and it's all these different things, and yet that is a picture of what Jesus did for us.
Right.
We were his creation.
Yeah.
We were created in his image. He created us. We ran away. He then comes and brings his son, who is humiliated, who is beaten, who is crucified, and buys us back. He buys back his own creation.
Yeah.
That is why it's the greatest love story.
Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
why and it's a love story based on him, not based on us.
Yeah.
We're the unfaithful wife.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
we're the one running away from him, and he's the one chasing after us.
Right. And I think that there are some of us that go, well, how am I an unfaithful wife? How am I unfaithful to God? I read my Bible, I go to church, I do the checklist. I do the things that make me feel like a Christian. So how am I being unfaithful? And what would you say to a student that's thinking that? Because I know if I were to hear this story in high school, because I didn't hear the story until I was in college, I probably would have had that same reaction of like, I don't know how else more to be faithful.
Yeah, no, I love how you said checklist.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of Christians believe is if we check off everything and we're good, then we're faithful, then we're the good ones. But the fact is that anytime we put anything above God in our life, it could be family, and it doesn't have to be bad things.
Right.
Anytime we put anything before God, we are unfaithful. Anytime we put anything in front of him, we become the adulterous wife. And so many of us have built this life around a checklist.
Right.
And it's interesting. There's a word in Hosea that talks about to know. And it doesn't mean to have a head knowledge, but it means to have a personal relationship. And I think way too often we check off, or our checklist is, yes, I go to church. Yes, I've had my quiet time. So then I know God. That
Right.
does not mean you have a relationship with him.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's where to kind of go into that in our third point, which is the catch. We see that ultimately Hosea's wife does return to him. Gomer does come back, and we see in Hosea 3:3, Hosea says to her, "You are live with me many days. You must not be promiscuous or belong to any man, and I will act in the same way toward you. For the Israelites must live many days without a king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred pillar, and without ephod or household items. Afterward, the people of Israel will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come with awe to the Lord and to his goodness in the last days." And so what we see is that, Hosea is saying, like, stay with me. I'm going to stay with you, which is the promise that God makes with us. Like he promises that he will never leave us and that he's always going to be near. And Hosea then tells Gomer, you're not to leave me. This is a two-way partnership. This is a two-way commitment. And we could go back all the way to, Abraham if we wanted to with that, of just this commitment to where God has said, like, I am not going to leave my people. I'm not going to leave my children, and my children are not to leave me.
Yeah.
And so, how does that, you talked about a relationship, like what does that look like in today's time? Like how to have like that moment, like where we're not saying a prayer, or, how do we know we're in that commitment? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
That's a great question. I think part of it is that we understand that God sets up these guardrails for our relationship with him to protect us and to keep us in them. And so often people look at those as, well, the Bible's just a bunch of rules.
Yeah.
The Bible's just about following this, and it's not.
Yeah.
It is about a personal relationship with a God who wants to know us, with a God who created us and loves us. And so way too often we make Christianity about rules, what we do and what we don't do. And really it's not. It's about a relationship. And the more we fall in love with Jesus, the more we're going to live like him. The more we fall in love with the world, the more we're going to live like the world. And so God says, here are the things I want you, because that's what Hosea did. Hosea came back, he brought her back, he brought Gomer back, and he said, hey, here's some parameters you're going to live within. And what is interesting is, it just even within the story, we see that there's this time where God says, look, you guys are going to fall to the Assyrians. You guys are going to be captured. You guys are going to be, but after a time, I'm going to bring you back. And when you come back, I want you to live within these parameters. These are the things that I want you to know, because I love you. They're there for your protection. And way too often we look at God and his word and we go, well, you're holding back something for me.
Yeah.
When in all reality, we've seen nothing but love in this story. We've seen nothing but him going, I'm giving you everything I have.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where that it falls into that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I think, one connection that someone made to me, and it was in a different kind of context, but it applies here, is that, if you're on a roller coaster, you don't want to ride that roller coaster. You don't want to go out and not have that harness on. You don't want to be locked in, because if you go on a good one, you're going up and down and upside down and all those things. Like, it's going to be a wild time, but you know that you have the safety of that control, the safety of that harness on you. And like, yes, you may push on it, because like, I know every time I get in, I push to make sure it's still there. But it never leaves. It's there the entire ride, because if you suddenly were to lose it, well, that ride has all of a sudden become way more terrifying. And it's the same thing with Jesus. I think we look at our relationship with Christ as something like, it is the rules. It is that legalistic idea of like, just gotta check this off, check this off, check this off. But in reality, like I was reading in Matthew today, and just, this idea of like the parable of the vineyard workers, where, they're like, what the heck? Like, we started this morning, they started an hour ago, we're getting paid the same. And I read it and it was kind of this revelation of like, I may be one of the early workers. I'm getting the same reward as someone that comes late, but like at the end of the day, I'm there. I'm in the vineyard. I'm in I'm doing the Lord's work. And I think it's the same thing with our relationship. Like does it have like struggles? It seems like it, because our flesh wants to go live in the world. Yeah. But ultimately, God has put these things there as a safety net for us. And that's kind of how the story of Hosea ends, is Gomer and Hosea having they rebuild their relationship, they rebuild their marriage, and they're able to continue on and without sounding cheesy, kind of just go into the sunset, as the Hosea continues to do as the Lord commands him. And so, Shane, as we wrap up, we finish up Hosea and we look ahead, we're, into this intertestamental period. Because I know some of you are sitting there going, wait, if we're done, like, there's another week before Thanksgiving, what's going on? And so we're going into this intertestamental period. And I would love to just take a second and kind of talk about what that looks like, because next week we're not going to meet, and we're not going to meet online. We're going to be having a worship night. We're going to be just coming together to be in the kind of silence, the silence that would have happened, because the Israelites God's people don't hear from him for 400 years. And so that's what we'll be doing next week. But I kind of wanted to talk about that before we finished up today.
Wow, that's that's one of those that's a time where God says, "Look, I've sent you prophets, I've sent you all these things. You continue to rebel, you continue to run away from me. I'm gonna hand you over to what you think you want, and I'm gonna be silent for some time." Now, that doesn't mean he wasn't with them,
right?
And that's the thing. There's times maybe in our lives where we feel like God is silent. Now, he may be silent, but he is definitely there. But with that, it was a time where the Israelites had to search and look and seek him out, because he was silent. But then he breaks that silence. He breaks that silence with the announcement of a baby. He breaks that silence with Jesus coming. And that is huge.
And one question before we finish up is like, that idea of Jesus or of God being silent while stuff is going on. Like, I feel like God's silent sometimes. Does that mean I've done something wrong? Have I done something to offend God? Or, how does that play out?
That is awesome. There was a time when I was in college, and I wrestled with this, because there was about a 2-month period where I felt like God was silent. And really what God was doing was God was teaching me that he's not about emotions. He's not about my emotions do not dictate who God is. So if I feel great, that doesn't mean God is good. And if I feel bad, that doesn't mean God is judging me. What it is God was showing me I am faithful no matter what.
Right.
I'm faithful through the silence. I'm faithful through the good times. I'm faithful through the bad times. And so no, because I asked those questions. God, is there sin in my life? God, what can I do? I was having my quiet time. There were all these things that I kept going, God, where are you? And God was testing me, and God was going, I'm faithful no matter how you feel.
Yeah.
I'm faithful no matter your circumstances.
Right.
And so that was, I believe it's the same thing through here.
Yeah.
You know, God is faithful through this silence
For sure.
with his people. And so the thing I learned at that time was what I feel does not dictate who he is.
Yeah. No, that's super good. And so, you know, we've talked about a lot. We've covered a lot. We've covered the story of Hosea. We've covered the gospel itself. We've talked about the intertestamental period. If there's anything that you have a question about, you're going to see a number pop up on the screen. Just text talk to that number. And we look forward to talking with you and helping you kind of process this out, because there is, like, we talked about salvation, but we also talked about God being silent. And we talked about, you know, those two things. And that kind of speaks to two different camps. And so if, like, you have any questions or you want to talk through anything that we've talked about, just text talk to the number on the screen. And we hope to talk with you. And so, like I said, we're not going to meet next week. We will be here on campus doing a live worship night together. If you're in the area and you want to join, man, come by. We'll be in the student building around 6:30. If you happen to come by and you'll come in, you've probably seen Shane sitting at the front desk. Walk up, tell us you're an online student. Tell us you've been hanging out with us virtually. We'd love to connect with you. I'd love to connect with you. Shane would. And you can come join us. It's going to be a big combined night. Middle school and high school will be together, so there's no intimidation, nothing. Just come be as you are. Otherwise, I would encourage you to take some time, worship on your own. There's great worship albums out there, great worship bands, Elevation, Hillsong, Shane and Shane. Like, there's just so many great times, but just take some time and worship by yourself or with a group, and just rejoice to the Lord for all that he's done as we head into Thanksgiving. And then we'll see you back at Christmas. I'm really excited about our Christmas series, continuing kind of through this cover to cover idea. And so there will be some questions on the screen as well for you to just kind of use to think through, help process all that we've talked about. I'd encourage you, ask your friends, ask your family, and see what conversations come about it. So Shane, do you have anything else?
Just remember, Thanksgiving, just as good as Christmas.
No. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.